Join us today as we learn about a new sport that is growing in popularity. Well, hello and welcome to Advanced Radio listeners, and we are so happy that you joined us today. We have an exciting article to share with you called The Rise of Disc Golf. Now, this is our sports article for this month of September, but before we get started, I want to introduce my fellow hosts on the show today. To my left, I have a lovely lady sitting with us. What is your name, lovely lady?
Hi, I am Linda C., and thank you for having me on the program today, Amanda.
Thanks for coming from Studio Classroom and joining us, Linda. And to my right, we have a special guest with us today. Sir, what is your name?
My name is Brendan, and I am an intern currently working here at Studio Classroom.
Great. Well, it's great to have you with us, Brendan. And we look forward to just continuing through this article together. Listeners, we have a lot in store for you. It is a new sport that we will be exploring today, perhaps one you've never heard of before. But as I get started, I want to ask our other hosts, this sport is called disc golf. Have you heard of it before, Linda?
I had not, but it's something I would like to try out.
It's a very interesting sport. Actually, disc golf is a game in which there's like a plastic disc similar to a frisbee that is thrown into metal baskets on an outdoor course, usually like a golf course, hence the name disc golf. And they try to complete the course using as little throws as possible. Brandon, had you heard of the sport before?
I actually had, only I heard it under the name Frisbee Golf. And I actually played it with some friends at their house once. However, instead of metal baskets like is used in the now apparently professional scene, we used plastic hoops and rings and just used basic generic frisbees that we had lying around.
So how big was the property that you were playing on?
They had a fairly large house with a fairly large, set of land for them, but we are not talking full golf course size, which I imagine is what these frisbee golfers would play on.
Right. But you have an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. Did you enjoy it?
It was fun. It's a lot easier to pick up than basic golf. You don't have the complications that come with angles and the different clubs and trying to see a very small object to get into a very small hole at distances of hundreds of meters.
Right. A bit of a bigger object you can use when it's a disc, right?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Okay, great. Well, we are going to learn about how disc golf is growing in popularity, where it's come from in the past, and what's happening currently with it. So, listeners, I'd like you to join us as we turn to page 42 in our magazine or on our digital device, and we will begin our reading on line 1.
The rise of disc golf. This new sport continues to grow in popularity. On weekends, Vista del Camino Park in Scottsdale, Arizona, is a busy place for runners, walkers, and bikers. But over the past decade, the park has become a hotbed for another popular activity in the valley, disc golf. We've got a nice little community down here, local disc golfer Spencer Mallett said. There are plenty of courses around. There are lots of people that play. There are tons of different groups that go out. There's a league or tournament almost every day or week. The valley is home to numerous opportunities in the golf-frisbee hybrid that has seen a significant rise in popularity around the world in the last decade. Exploding growth. In 2005, the Professional Disc Golf Association, PDGA, had 9,629 active members, according to a report released by the organization. 10 years later, there were more than 30,000. During that period, disc golf courses have sprung up around the world, going from just under 2,000 courses internationally in 2005 to more than 5,500 last year, according to the PDGA. Most are in the United States, and more than 50 are in Arizona.
Well, listeners, if you are just joining us, we're looking at our sports article for the month of September. And this month, we're looking at the sport of disc golf. We're actually learning about its rise in popularity. And we see that it's a little bit different to frisbee. The disc meaning the plastic disc that is used in the game, and it's thrown into a series of metal baskets on an outdoor course like golf, and you try to complete the course using the fewest possible throws. Now, we're going to Arizona right now in our article, especially on the weekends. We learn in Vista del Camino Park on Scottsdale, Arizona. Well, we learned that it is a busy place. And it is a busy place for who, Brendan?
Walkers, runners, bikers, just the people of Arizona who want to spend some time outside but don't necessarily want to spend it in their yard.
Right. So oftentimes we go to the local park. And we've learned over the last decade, though, that the park has become a hotbed for another activity. First of all, Linda, what does the word hotbed mean?
It refers to a place where there's a lot of activity. And so here, the park has a lot of maybe different things going on, different activities, different sports.
Right. We learned that there's runners, there's walkers, there's bikers. There's a hotbed for that. But there's another popular activity in this valley. What is it, Brendan?
Well, it is disc golf, the sport that we are talking about today.
Exactly. And we hear from a disc golfer. His name is Spencer Mallett. What does he go on to say?
He says that they have a very good community in the park, since there are a lot of people who want to play, and the park apparently is large enough that they can manage to hold all of the different people who want to play. There's enough room for them all to throw their discs at various metal baskets placed around the park.
Right, so they sound like they have a good environment for this particular sport, right? There are plenty of courses around, and not only do you need the courses, but you need the people that are going to play the game. And so they say there's tons of different groups. What do we mean, Linda, when we say tons of something?
Just lots of, many.
Right, it's another way to say that. So they have different groups together, and they even have leagues or tournaments. Brendan, what is a league?
A league is a group of people, usually who are grouped into smaller groups, that are all united by something in common. So, on a political level, there's the League of Nations, which was an organization made up of multiple nations, all united under a common goal of maintaining peace. In a case of a sport, it is a group of teams that are all coming together to share their love for the game, oftentimes competitively with one another.
Right, and then that's also what tournament is, right? Having a competitive game together. Good. Mm-hmm. Now, we see that they have them almost every day or week, Linda.
Right, yeah. So you can witness teams playing and competitions in the park.
So it seems to be quite a popular sport. When you're playing something every day, let alone every week, then it's considered quite popular, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Well, we see in the Valley, that's the name of this place, it's called the Valley. It's home to numerous opportunities in, what is this called here, Brendan? The Golf Frisbee Hybrid. What is a hybrid?
A hybrid is a combination of two things that, generally speaking, they have some similar qualities, but they are not the same. Golf and Frisbee are actually radically different. But in this case, different qualities of golf have been combined with qualities of Frisbee to make this new sport.
Right, and earlier you mentioned that that was the name that you've actually heard of it used before, right? Not disc golf, but Frisbee golf.
Yes, and that is because the way that this particular hybrid is seen is usually where you're playing functionally golf. The only difference is instead of hitting a ball, you are throwing a Frisbee.
Right.
Hence, Frisbee golf.
Right, and earlier you mentioned in golf that you using a little ball, you're hitting the little ball into the hole in the ground. But here we're using baskets instead of the hole in the ground. The basket is what you're trying to get the disc into. And so this area, the valley, has a lot of opportunities for people to play this sport, and it has seen a significant rise in popularity, not only in the valley, but around the world in the last decade. Linda, had you heard of disc golf before this article?
No, I hadn't, but it seems to be gaining a lot of popularity.
It seems interesting that it's around the world. Here in this article, we're talking specifically about America, but it says that it has gained a lot of popularity around the world. I'm familiar with ultimate Frisbee, which is another sport using Frisbee. And Linda, we were talking about the fact that that also became quite popular, right?
Right, that was a little known sport, and it's more recently that it became really popular and played in different countries as well.
Right, and we see here that this too has risen in popularity around the world. Does that surprise you, Brendan?
Not really. With the rise of the internet and the general globalization of ideas, small little things like sports or even anything that looks fun can get spread around really, really quickly. And so, since the internet has no borders, you know, an idea can easily go from America to England to Africa to New Zealand to China to Japan. It doesn't matter.
Right, and often, you know, Frisbee is seen as a backyard game that you play, you know, just after a barbecue or something like that, and all they've done is increased the backyard to a golf course, right? But no, actually, this is a very professional sport. In fact, in our next paragraph, we learn that in 2005, there was a professional disc golf association made and founded, and it's called the PDGA. In 2005, it had 9,629 active members. Now, I'd never even heard of this sport back then, but already it had quite a few active members. And this is according to a report released by the organization. What do we mean here when a report gets released, Linda?
It's been distributed or made public.
Right. And then we learned 10 years later, how many people were in this association, Brendan?
30,000, which is almost triple the number it had back in 2005.
That just shows the popularity and how fast it's increased. Well, during that period, golf or disc golf courses sprung up around the world. What do we mean when something has sprung up, Linda?
It's appeared. So in this case, they have formed. They've created disc golf courses all around.
Wow. And going from just under 2,000 courses internationally in 2005, they have more than how many now, Brendan?
5,500.
Wow. So that just shows you the figures or the data that shows how this sport has exploded in growth. Now, we see most of them are in the United States, with more than 50 in the state of Arizona alone. Well, what else can be learned about this sport? We'll see in the next paragraph.
Nurturing a passion. Helping cultivate the enthusiasm locally is Keith Murray, owner of Spinners on the Green, a disc golf pro shop located just off the course at Vista del Camino Park. Murray started in the industry in 1998, when the sport was still fairly unknown. Disc golf is similar to traditional golf in that players navigate around trees and water hazards to reach a goal. But they do it with different-sized discs and, instead of holes, disc golfers target chain baskets that catch their discs. Throwing discs around a typical course only takes a couple hours, which is a draw for many new players. Now that word has gotten out about the sport, Murray estimates he sees 5 new faces a day coming through the shop.
Well, listeners, if you've just joined us, we are looking at a sports article called The Rise of Disc Golf. And disc golf is a frisbee hybrid game that has been created. It has risen in popularity around the world in the last decade. Now, we've seen a lot of disc golf courses having sprung up around the world. And before this paragraph, we've talked about the statistics involved in that. And we've learned these statistics from the Professional Disc Golf Association. Now, they do have a website that you can go to, and it contains a lot of information about disc golf. It talks about the rules of how to play the game. It has events and even courses, a list of the courses where you can find a disc golf course. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you check out the Professional Disc Golf Association website online. Now, we talked a little bit about how this has grown in popularity. Perhaps we think about frisbee as being a backyard sport, and from there this has taken on a life of its own and become its own sport. Now we see that it's a passion for different people, and in this next paragraph we're talking about nurturing a passion. Linda, what does it mean to nurture something?
When you nurture something, you take care of it. When we think of nurturing, like a mother nurturing a child, so the mother's responsibility is to make sure the child is fed, is clothed, is taken care of so that it can grow.
Good. And nurturing a passion, Brendan, how does one nurture a passion?
Well, generally speaking, when you are nurturing a passion, you're nurturing a hobby, an activity, a skill, something that requires action primarily from you to do. So the only really way you can nurture something like that is by doing it, by playing, in this case, disc golf, by maybe finding ways of gathering people together to play it with you, because playing disc golf by yourself can get pretty boring, I would imagine. We are social creatures, after all.
Right, so it's nice to play with some other people. Well, we learn in this next paragraph that Keith Murray, who is the owner of a store, a disc golf store called Spinners on the Green, is helping cultivate enthusiasm locally. What does it mean to cultivate something, Linda?
It means to try and develop something or improve it.
Right, so he's trying to do that locally, like get people enthusiastic about disc golf in his area, in his community. And he owns a disc golf pro shop located just off the course, or just off this golf course at Vista del Camino Park. And what has he done in the industry? Well, he started in the industry in 1998. And what do we learn about the sport in 1998, Brendan?
It was still small. It was still unknown.
Right, good. And we see the word here, fairly unknown, or you can replace that word with quite. So a little or a lot, not completely though. So here it wasn't very well known yet. Now we go on in the next paragraph to learn about its similarities with traditional golf. Linda, what do we learn?
Well, they're played on a similar surface, on a grassy surface, and the players, they have to play around trees and other water hazards to get to their goal.
Good. Okay. So in traditional golf, the golf ball has to be hit and you're trying to miss it getting into the water. Well, if that happens, it's all over, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't want that to happen, for it to get in the water. And I'm sure the same is with a disc. So when we say navigate, Brendan, what do we mean?
To navigate is to find your way through a potentially unknown or dangerous territory. Most people navigate the ocean, or sometimes, if you want a more tame version, you would navigate through a crowded shopping mall or something like that. You need to find your way through an area where there are potentially obstacles of some kind.
Okay, good. So in disc golf, the obstacles are trees. You don't want the disc to hit the tree. You don't want it to land in the water because you want it to land in these baskets. Now, tell us a little bit more about that from the next sentence, Linda.
Well, they have different sized discs, and instead of holes like in golf, they target the chain baskets, and those are baskets made of metal chains and poles. And so you have to try to get the disc into the basket.
Good, and we see a picture of that at the bottom of page 43. That is a chain basket, and that is what you want the disc to land into. In traditional golf, it's the hole in the ground. In disc golf, it is these chain baskets. Now, how long would a game take, usually, Brendan?
Only a few hours.
Right.
That's why a lot of people really enjoy it, because it doesn't take that much time out of their day.
How long does a traditional golf game take?
It can take all day. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're walking 18 holes. Right? It's made up of 18 holes, and each hole can take, depending on how good you are, can take a bit of time. I know in the past when I've played golf, it's taken a long time. I'm not that great at it, but it was good for the walking exercise. I know you can do 9 holes. You can do half that time, but even that may take half a day to do. So the fact that this only takes a couple of hours, it says here is a draw for many players. Brennan, what do we mean when we say something is a draw?
It means it is attractive and it brings people in. So the best analogy that I can think of is similar to drawing blood. That's what the same use of the word draw. Only in this case, instead of blood, we are dealing with people, and we're bringing them into a new sport.
Okay, good. I like what you said about it attracting people, right? People are drawn to it. Well, it says here, now that word has gotten out about the sport, Keith Murray estimates he sees 5 new faces a day coming through his store. Linda, what do we mean with that phrase, now that the word has gotten out?
It's when information or maybe even a secret wasn't known before, but now it is, it's known, and it causes changes.
Good. And when we estimate something, Brendan, what are we doing?
An estimate is a guess, basically.
Right. So perhaps he doesn't remember exactly how many faces he saw in the day, but he's thinking that he saw perhaps 5 new faces a day coming through the store. Actually, that's quite a lot when you think about it. That adds up over time. So the fact that he's seeing 5 new faces a day rather than regular customers is quite a testimony to how popular this is getting. Now, after you've read how this works, are you interested at all, Linda, in giving this a go?
Yeah, I would. I mean, it sounds a lot easier than golf and less time consuming, and we'll find out a little bit later. It's not as expensive as golf, so I'd definitely love to try it out.
Right. Brendan, for you, had you played traditional golf before?
Not really. Traditional golf is a lot more complicated and actually a lot more skill-intensive than one actually thinks. Sure, you're not athletically sprinting around a field like you would be with football or American football or any other sport, really, but you still have a very specific technique you need to pull off, and you need to know what club to use. With disc golf, you're just sort of, it's almost the same as throwing a frisbee. Now, I have thrown frisbees before, and I can tell you that there are fun tricks you can do with the frisbee to make it curve or to make it go upside down or do all kinds of funny stuff. But it's a lot simpler, and it's a lot easier for people to pick up.
Right. And I think that's good. It's a lot easier for people to pick up. Going out and getting your clubs, golf clubs can be very expensive. Getting the gear for it, even paying for membership to a golf course, all these kinds of things. In comparison to a disc golf.
Right.
Disc golf's a lot cheaper, right?
Exactly. And I was actually surprised the first time I played golf for how difficult it was, because it does require skill and technique, as Brandon said. And because when I'd watch it on TV or, watch other people play, it seems so boring. Like, it's, it shouldn't be that hard. You're just hitting a ball into the hole. But it is actually pretty intense.
Right. So listeners, perhaps you've played golf before, but you're wanting to do something different. You might want to give disc golf a try. Or listeners, if you found the idea of traditional golf to be quite intimidating, then perhaps disc golf is something you can also give a go. I think that after today's article, I've thought about it, and I think I'd like to give this a go. I like Frisbee. I do like golf, but I find it very intensive, as you mentioned, with regard to the skill involved in using it. So this seems more attractive to me. It's drawing me in. But we will go on to learn a little bit more about it tomorrow. So listeners, we invite you to come back to learn more about our sports article for September. And that's all the time we have for today. But we do ask that you check out more material from our advanced team. You can either do that through our QR codes in the magazines or through our website. In the QR codes, you'll be linked to our Topic Talk videos. You can see that on our website or our mobile website as well. But for me and for our host today, this is us saying goodbye for now. This is Amanda,
Brendan?
And Linda.
saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.